down, yelling out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. Solo show today. I am breaking it down. We're going to be doing This Week in Freight, powered by DAT. To lead off the show, you guys, we're going to be doing a little dry-van analysis today. And as always, you guys, if you guys want your lanes broken down live on the show, I need you to submit them to my team, though. podcast@thefreightcoach.com. Again, we don't need anything other than a shipping city, delivery city, and a trailer type, all right? And if you want to round up to the nearest big city to throw, to kind of keep me off of your trail, which again, you guys, I don't really have the time to go out and fucking research all of that stuff. We'll break it down. And again, you guys, I'm trying to help you guys understand how markets actually work and how some of these, there's just so many data points that are out there. And I want to help you guys understand how I personally assess markets, lanes, and everything else, and then provide pricing to my customers. Because like, no matter what, you guys, whether there's a 10,000% tender rejection rate or, whatever happens out there, we got to find a solution. And there's a lot more stability out there, at least from my seat, right? But again, take that for what it's worth. I just actually move freight. There's a lot more stability out there in the market than some people want to make you believe. And we're here to keep it as real as possible out there, you guys. So today, this lane, I chose this one because like I've literally moved this lane probably like 5,000 times in my career. It's one of the lanes that I started off doing a lot of food and bev on early on in my career. And I swear at one point we were moving more freight on this specific lane than probably any other provider in the country at that time. But it is from Ontario, California to Seattle, Washington. And this lane, the drivers out there and the carriers are not going to like this one at all, because this is like essentially what it was 10 years ago when we were moving this freight. And that, I know that never makes anybody happy to hear that stuff, but it really hasn't moved. Okay. And the seasonality of it. All right. I want you guys to pay attention to this, because this lane, although the graph shows some like pretty decent spikes out there, it's pretty much doing the exact same thing. If we look though from last February to this February, we're looking at like $150 increase overall out there. And, again, you can tie a lot of that stuff into a lot of the real things that are going on in regards to the CDLs and everything else. Then the FMCSA really taking a mark on this. So again, there's an indication now of like a little bit less capacity out there in the market that could be driving that rate up there. But I look at this overall, and this lane is like the epitome of stability. All right. And again, this is a power lane of power lanes. There is so much capacity that runs between LA and Seattle. And this one is I would say back in the day when we were doing this between 2011 and 2016, it was like maybe $2,800 to about 3,200 is what we were paying back then. And, again, I know the cost of everything has gone up. So I get that from a carrier's perspective. But again, if we're out there looking for that stability aspect of it, this lane is about as stable as you're going to get. And this lane has like legitimately performs the exact same way every single year. And this is the last 12 months of this. So it's like, if I'm going out there, again, I'm not going to tell you guys what to quote your customers, but I would assume it's going to be very similar to what you're seeing right here on what you're paying. And your quote to them is not going to be much higher than this overall because there's just so much competition that's out there. But again, capacity is everything. And I would probably assume that just like back in the day, if this load had to pick up on Thursday for Monday or Friday for Monday, the rate is going to be a little bit higher out there because, again, that extra day adds to the price. But one of those things I always like to do, especially on a high volume lane, if I'm going into an RFP or anything like that, I look at the inverse. All right. I look at the outbound Seattle going down to Ontario. And again, this lane is very low. All right. If you're looking at it overall from a price perspective, this lane has not changed at all in the entirety of my career. So, but it's like, again, there's a lot more stability that's out there, and you got to take the good with the bad. Okay. You are going to come into times and pockets in any market where capacity is going to be a little bit tighter. All right. Maybe you had a fall off and last minute, you're going to have to pay more to service the customer. But I think ultimately, you guys, you have to look at this from this perspective. These lanes don't change as much as people want, right? Like I said, I did this lane 5,000 times minimum. I'm not over exaggerating this, you guys. We had a very high volume shippers, beverages, some red can beverages out there that we moved a lot of freight on this lane. And the market, if I'm looking at it from the 12-month cycle here, which again, this is the clear indicator from the historical breakdown that I'm seeing, is extremely similar to the price increases that we saw out there and everything else. So again, look for the stability markers. That's what I want you guys to focus in on as you're going out and quoting your customers, because that's what we need to find. It doesn't matter where tender rejections are. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday weekend. We got to find solutions for them. And you can't take a tight capacity weekend or something like that, or a holiday, and then try and go in there and reject tenders and everything else. Because trust me, if you're rejecting that tender because you don't want to take a loss on a load for whatever reason, it's going to end up on somebody who thinks like me in my desk. And I'm going to take that freight. I'm going to break even. I'm going to lose a little bit of money. And then eventually your customer's going to forget about you because there's people out there who will service accounts at all costs. And if you're looking at this, you guys, this lane doesn't change. There's stability written all over it. You got to go out there and find it. Find those carriers that are moving this lane out of Ontario to Seattle. Trust me, there's about 1 million of them that are out there. And you find them, and then you find out what they need. All right. You want to get to them, get them the consistent rate that they're looking for overall. And then you can provide that exact same service to your customers. All right. How do I know this? I actually move freight every single day. And I've been doing this for a very long time, you guys. The market is the market at the end of the day. And you got to find those markers that are going to keep your customers coming back to you, as opposed to the 20-some thousand other freight brokers that are currently in the market pining for your customer's business. Because I know I am, right? I think in Kara Smith Brown's book, The Revenue Engine, you guys, she says it best. Your best customer is somebody else's top prospect. And trust me, somebody is calling them at all times. Service is everything, you guys. Service and communication is everything. You got to find those reasons that make them coming back for you. And trust me when I say this, yes, there's pockets of tightness. There are pockets that rates increase out there, but it is not a long-term thing. And if it is a long-term thing, trust me when I say this, customers will understand it because they're going to hear it from a lot of people, and they're going to go out there and rebid their freight if they need to happen. Okay. If it needs to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen at the levels that people are thinking that it's going to happen. I just don't see capacity leaving the market at as high as a rate as some people think is going to go on. But, again, I could be wrong, and I'll be the first one to admit it, because my brokerage would exponentially benefit from the fact of, a lot of tightness happening out there and some, changes and stuff. But that, you guys, This Week in Freight, powered by DAT, we do dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds. If you want that lane, if you want a lane like that broken down on the show email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com, and we will break it down live on the show. I don't need anything other than a shipping city, delivery city, and trailer type. That's all I need. And again, my friends with DAT partnered up with me because at the end of the day, we understand that things are going to happen, but we got to find a way to perform for our customers. And I just want to help you guys understand that there could be pockets of uncertainty, but very rarely does it last as long as individuals think out there. But let's dive into some articles here, you guys. And as always, any links to the articles, we will update that into the show notes on iTunes and Spotify, because like ultimately, you guys, this is just my literal opinion on how I see things. And I want you guys to do your own research on it, because trust me, I can be wrong at times, but you know, we put all that information out there because I also like to cite my sources. I do want to, obviously there's a building conflict in the Middle East that's going on right now. I'm not going to comment on anything on that in regards to diesel prices and everything else, because I've seen a few posts out there that kind of have addressed it and talked about it. And I think that everything is just too early to tell. I think that we see so much information at a rapid pace. Everybody's got to put an opinion out there about everything at any given moment. I do not think that I will say this. If you just go back a couple of months ago when they, captured Maduro and took over their oil, I think we're good for that, right? If I would assume that was probably a calculated move that kind of led into this. But again, I'm not a geopolitical expert out there, and I'm not going to sit here and try and say what's right and what's wrong. I vote for people to do that for us on our behalf, and we'll see what happens. But again, it's been like 48 hours. So I think a lot of people need to wait for a lot more information to trickle down the pipeline before there's any definitive responses on what is going to actually happen out there. But let's jump into these articles, you guys. First article we are going to break down is from freightwaves.com. The FMCSA spotlights trucking's multi-million-dollar insurance gap. The FMCSA has released a critical report sounding the alarm on widening financial abyss in the trucking industry, the insurance gap. For over 40 years, the federal minimum liability requirement for interstate motor carriers has been stagnant at $750,000. However, the reality is, hold on, there we go. The reality is that nuclear verdicts, juries awarding awards exceeding $10 million has become a standard risk. The FMCSA spotlight indicates that there's a vast majority of small to mid-sized carriers that are effectively underinsured. By highlighting this gap, the FMCSA is signaling to Congress and the industry that a mandatory increase in federal minimums is inevitable. For brokers, this creates a negligent selection minefield. If you're going to load a carrier with only $750K in coverage and a unfortunate event happens, the legal system might look past the carrier to deeper pockets, as we all know, right? Like I think it's no surprise that anytime that there is a major event out there and lawsuits come about, everybody who's a part of it is sued. And I think like this, the timing of this article and then the timing of a Supreme Court hearing that's going to happen on this Wednesday the 4th, in regards to C.H. Robinson and everything else in regards to broker liability, I think that is going to have some potential major ramifications that are going to come down from this, right? And I again, pay attention to that. I have our friend Matt Leffler coming down the show on Friday. He is going to help me break down some of the reports and information that comes out about that. Because again, I like having actual lawyers come on to talk about cases and not like opinions on stuff, because, I also like to help bring a lot of great information out there. But let's go in. So like the 1980 is like a big year for the trucking industry. Obviously deregulation happened around that time. And then in this one, back in 1980, when this insurance requirement came in, that was like a massive amount of money, right? And if you look at that though, like through inflation and everything else, like that's essentially like $2 million today. And I think like back in the day, that was ample coverage and everything else that comes along. But like the underinsured thing is, and that's, you guys, this is why I have so many insurance people come on this show to break this stuff down, because like the certificate of insurance is such a small piece of what you need to all be looking for ultimately out there. And I look at this is that amount of money is like not even going to remotely cut it anymore. And I think that's why you're seeing brokers, shippers, tire manufacturers. Like I know there was a lawsuit against Great Dane that happened here a few years ago that they got sued and everything else. So there's like literally every time that there's an accident, especially with a fatality that's out there, literally every piece of that truck and trailer is going to be drug into that lawsuit. And I think that is, like I've mentioned on this show, drivers are unfortunately guilty until proven innocent, it seems, out there. I know that you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but like, damn, some of these lawsuits are insane that you see out there. And I think that's also driven higher insurance premiums and everything else out there is when we see these nuclear verdicts and stuff. And I mean, again, I'm not an insurance expert and I'm not a lawyer, but if they increase that from $750 to $2 million, that's only going to remove capacity, right? Because obviously insurance are going to increase their premiums and everything else. And I think that that's another thing that could come down. But I look at it is a lot of people think that being FMCSA compliant means being safe. And I think that, it's working with professionals in these situations. And especially if this comes down and you own a fleet, I would be personally calling my insurance agent right now about this stuff. I would be calling my attorney about this stuff right now, because if this comes down and there's any raising in regards to that, what's that going to do to your business overall? I think that this is going to potentially cause a decent amount of carriers to possibly leave the market if there is any real push for this. And I look at it is people go after deep pockets and everything else. And I think that if minimums jump up, I think the premiums alone are going to put a lot of people out of business. I think trucking operates at razor thin margins, especially on the asset side of things. And any more increases to insurance, I think is going to be a true death sentence to a lot of small owner operators and everything else. Not everybody, right? Like I don't want to make any blanket statements or fear monger, but like I look at that as like this is the compliance hammer of like the financial side of the business, right? Because costs going up, you can only sustain it for so long, right? Like I look at it here inside of my business, and my insurance went up. My all of the vendors that I work with for, even to produce this show, for example, a lot of those premiums went up on an annual basis. And again, the cost to operate continues to increase. And I wish it was just easier as like, oh, just go find more business and everything will be fine. And that's just not always the case. I wish it was that simple. I just look at it is if there's an even continuing rise out there, even if it's not going to put them out of business, how much does that drive a business owner to just say, it's just not worth it. It's not worth going through all this headache, all of this risk, all of this liability just to make pennies on the dollar, So it's like, I think that might drive more of a mental people just waving the white flag and saying it's just not worth it. And then it's like, but I do look at it like this, like, what can you do today? I think that going through your carrier database and running a filter to see how many carriers are you working with that do carry the $750,000 minimum. I think that might be a good one to kind of watch. I would just pay attention to this a lot, you guys, because it could potentially be a very big deal if this continues to come down. And again, I look at it as a lot of our industry is getting a ton of attention right now. And I think that there's going to probably be some more legislative changes that come down the pipeline here. But I would check that article out, you guys. Freightwaves.com. FMCSA spotlights trucking's multi-million-dollar insurance gap. Pay attention to that one. Here's another big one that came down. Very rarely do you see trucking in the State of the Union address, and this article covers that and what came out last week. But this article is from overdriveonline.com. CDL recertification for all, lifetime bans for some non-citizens floating the rules. The Dalilah law has been introduced. Dalilah's Law was introduced to Congress as the definitive strike against the CDL mill epidemic that has plagued this industry. It was named after a victim of an accident involving an undertrained driver. The law seeks to federalize the standards for CDL issuances out there. Currently, CDL testing varies from a state-by-state basis, allowing drivers to state hop to whatever DMV has the lowest barrier to entry. Dalilah's Law mandates a national safety floor regarding standardized behind-the-wheel testing and real-time integration with the training provider registry. It effectively makes it a federal crime for schools to fudge training hours and give the FMCSA the power to decertify state examiners who fail to meet these new rigors. This is the government finally admitting that the paper CDL is a weapon, and they are moving to disarm all the mills once and for all. I think that, again, go out there, read up on this. Delilah Coleman's father, Marcus, had put a post out on X that the Delilah Law would include provisions targeting chameleon carriers, but the text of the bill does not include any of those requirements. In Delilah's case, she sustained life-altering injuries when an 18-wheeler driven by an Indian national, Partap Singh, hit the vehicle she was in at a high rate of speed. According to her father, the crash resulted in her inability to walk, talk, eat orally, or attend kindergarten as planned. Marcus and Dalilah Coleman were in attendance for the State of the Union this week. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem came out in support of this. Under President Trump's leadership, she said, "We have worked to deliver justice for the families impacted by illegal alien crime and have ensured that the tragedies they endured will no longer continue." What happened to Dalilah Coleman? Sorry, my computer keeps flickering here. Is a tragedy that could have been prevented if California did not grant commercial driver licenses to illegal aliens out there. So, like this bill in particular, I mean, this goes along with what I have been kind of talking about on this show here since a lot of this stuff really came out in the news back last fall, and when that tragic accident happened in Florida. I personally think that a standardized CDL across the board, like there's just no loopholes, right? Like there is one way of doing it. And I look at it as and again, I'm not a driver, so it's easy for me to say this, right? But that recertification process, I think, eliminates all prejudice and biases out there that you might see from the ELP push. Again, it's just one of those situations where it's like, if we want everybody to be able to read and speak the language, and that has to be a major portion of the CDL process, I think that's the only way to really do it is make everybody recertify under there. I think that there are too many loopholes. I think they are right. The fact that you can state hop out there is very true, right? Like there have been some very well-documented cases with certain states that are doing this. And this is red and blue states included in this, right? Like I'm not trying to toe the party lines here. There are states on all sides of the aisle that are making this an issue. And I look at this that, this is, I think that their standards are a good thing, as I talk about on this show a lot. Okay. Standards are a very good thing. And this just removes all of this stuff that makes, which I think, to kind of tie into the last article, I think this also leads to higher insurance premiums and everything else. Because again, I know that if we're looking at overall accident numbers and stuff like that those have been very well documented and publicized. But I look at this is changing the way to where there's like a set federal skills, for CDL issuances out there. And then again, like having it just the CDL test in English, I think is a very important portion of this as well. If we're going to continue to push ELP, like I don't think that you can push ELP and then also have states be able to issue CDL tests in a foreign language, right? Like I think if the main thing from the FMCSA is to be able to have all drivers pass an ELP test, read and speak English, then the CDL test should be in English, and all of that should be done. I just look at this this bill. It could do a lot of good for the industry. Could it affect capacity in the short term? I mean, maybe, right? Like I think we can all agree that we don't want any we don't want anybody operating a semi 80,000 pound speeding bullet going down the road that potentially didn't get the exact same training out there, right? Like, I don't want to fly on any airline where it's like, oh, hey, our pilots are only trained at 50% as these other airlines. I'm not going to touch that shit. And I don't think any one of you would want to be a part of that either, right? But again, I only speak for Chris Jolly. I think this law is great. I think what this law intends to do is great. And I hope it becomes a thing. I hope that there is one way of doing things across the board. If you're going to participate in interstate commerce, in interstate transit, you need to be held to the exact same standards. And I think that this is a good thing for the industry overall. That article is from Overdrive Online, Dalilah's Law introduced to Congress to reform CDL issuances. So check that one out. Last article we are going to break down is, excuse me here, you guys, ttnews.com, talking about driver recruiters in AI. The trucking industry is moving past the era of chatbots and into the era of agentic AI. While generative AI, like ChatGPT, can write a clever email, agentic AI can actually act and reason. In the world of driver recruiting, these agents are being used to perform deep dive grit vetting. These AI systems can conduct behavioral interviews, cross-reference the driver CDL history with new federal databases, and identify patterns of operational DNA that human recruiters might miss. Instead of a recruiter spending 8 hours a day on the phone with pulse hiring candidates, agentic AI filters for the top 1% of safe, high alpha performers. This technology is allowing asset-based carriers to scale their fleet quality at the same rate they can scale their truck count. All right. Again, I'm not a truck driver. I know how I would feel if I was getting interviewed by AI to get a job. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm old school. I don't want to talk to AI on the phone at all. All right. I don't want to do it when I call a bank or anything like that, let alone find a job. I could also imagine there's going to be heavy resistance by the driver community. Again, I'm not a driver, but a lot of my family are drivers still to this day. I know their opinions on some of this stuff. I just don't see how this is going to be like a win-win, right? I truly don't. I could see a lot of people resisting this as a whole, just like I could see a lot of brokers who implement AI callers in any capacity not necessarily working out in the long term, right? Because like I just look at it is like I look at just a couple years down the road. What stops a business from just having a chat bot or an AI bot answer the phone, and it's an AI receptionist, and then you have an AI dialer making calls on your business's behalf, and there's just AI talking to AI the whole time, and then like nothing actually happens. I just look at it is this is just one of those situations where, I mean, could it work? Yeah, everything could work in theory. I just don't know how widely accepted this is going to be by the people who they're trying to recruit, right? And I think like that's one thing, that technology might sound great for the role it's designed to help, but like, does it perform and does it create any resistance to the end user? You know, like, is this what your drivers or potential employees want? Are they asking for this? And then does that form any resistance out there? You know, like I think that this causes more resistance than not. I think this could potentially cause a carrier to lose out on qualified or quality driver candidates because they're going to be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have that conversation. And they'll just hang up the phone. Right. I don't know. Again, I could be wrong. I just don't see how this is a good thing overall. And this is just based on my experience of working in this industry literally my entire life and knowing the driver community. You know, I'm not going to say the best, but like pretty well. I've got a lot of experience on that side, and I just don't see how this works out, right? Like, could it work? Yes, but like, I don't know. It's the same reason why my companies will never have automated dialing in any capacity. When you call my business, when my business reaches out to you, it's going to be a real human being doing it. I just personally think it's going to be a competitive advantage in the next couple of years. And it's going to be your ability to show that you're a real person, because I think that human beings, at the end of the day, you can't change our DNA, and that tribal acceptance that we're all kind of looking for is going to come back. And I think it's going to come back roaring. And I'm just banking on that, right? I just don't know. I'm just personally never going to invest in an AI dialer to make calls on behalf of my company or take calls on behalf of my company, because I think in due time, it's going to be a competitive advantage for you to be able to show that you're a real human being. And I don't know. I just feel like that's going to be the way of the future. And it is your ability to walk out there and shake somebody's hand and look them in the eye, kind of like we were raised to. Well, not all of us, but if you went to elementary school in the 90s and graduated in the early 2000s, you remember what the world was like before all of this stuff. And I think that is going to be a massive skill set that will be adopted again here in the near future. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Ayy.